The board will hear two separate hearings today. Hearing 8173, a conditional use permit revocation hearing concerning 1823 McLaren, and hearing 8185, a hearing regarding an application for a tattoo parlor at 4530 Hampton. During the hearings today, testimony is being recorded. If you come forward to testify, please state your name and address and be sworn in. As you testify, please direct your comments to the board, not to those in the audience. Members of the audience are asked to remain silent and not coach witnesses. During your testimony, members of this board may have questions for you. Following the hearings today, the board will proceed with its regular agenda. Following the conclusion of the regular agenda, the board will deliberate and vote on the hearings. The board will notify the applicant and the conditional use holder of its decisions by mail. Hearing number 8173. This revocation hearing is being conducted pursuant to section 26.100.030 of the revised code. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the conditional use permit numbered 116364 issued to Ribi Mahmood to occupy 1823 McLaren as a grocery store with deli and cooking, no liquor, subject to certain conditions, should be revoked. This hearing was originally scheduled for July 7th, 2015, but was continued at the request of the conditional use permit holder. The condition in question is condition number 4, which reads as follows. Number 4, all signage must be applied for and approved by the Office of the Zoning Administrator. The board has in its possession the following documents which are being introduced into evidence. Item 1, a certified copy of the zoning code of the City of St. Louis. Item 2, the conditional use permit number 116364. Item 3, a copy of a letter sent from the zoning inspector to the conditional use permit holder warning of a violation that was found at the April 15, 2015 inspection. Item 4, a copy of a memo from the zoning inspector stating that upon her inspection on or around May 18, 2015, the zoning inspector found violation of condition number 4. Item 5, a copy of the public notice for the July 7th, 2015 hearing and today's hearing. Item 6, an email exchange between Rob Lufia, counsel to the conditional use holder, and the board's counsel regarding continuance of the July hearing. Item 7, a copy of the certified letter notifying the conditional use holder and his attorney that the July 7th, 2015 hearing was canceled at the request of the conditional use holder and will be rescheduled. Item 8, copies of certified letters sent to the conditional use holder and his attorney giving notice of the July hearing and today's hearing. And item 9, 2 letters in opposition to the business dated 7/21 of 15 and 7/7 of 15. The Office of the Zoning Administrator has the burden to prove the conditional use permit conditions have not been complied with. At this time, the board will hear from zoning as to the inspection of the property today. Then, after all evidence of the zoning administrator has been presented, the board will ask for any additional testimony in support of the revocation. Then, the conditional use holder will be given the opportunity to testify. Lastly, the board will hear any testimony in opposition to the revocation. At this time, the board asks the representative of the zoning administrator please come forward and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
My name is Myra Turner, zoning inspector for the City of St. Louis.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell the board what you found?
Okay, as of today, and please excuse the typographical error because you will find a 3 on there for condition, but it should be 4. I apologize. Per my investigation today of the above referenced address, they still have signs posted with no permit.
Okay. So my understanding is that the original signage that was there was permitted, but then some changes have been made, and the change sign has not been permitted. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you. Okay. At this time, I would ask if anyone else wishes to testify in support of the revocation, please come forward and be sworn in. Seeing none, the board asks the conditional use permit holder to please come forward and be sworn in.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
For the board, please.
Yes. I have only one sign on the building, and I have.
Know your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Ribhi Mahmoud. I have the 1823 McLaren Avenue, and I only have one sign.
That's good enough.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Are you speaking on behalf of the conditional use permit holder? Or
Right.
are you the permit holder?
I'll be speaking on behalf of the gentleman.
Okay.
Can you please state your name for the record, too, please?
I'm sorry?
Can you please state your name for the record, too, please?
Okay. My name is Christopher Ewing, owner of Area-Wide Signs, located here in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm down here on behalf of one of my customers to go ahead and see if we can straighten whatever violations out that he's been cited for.
Okay. So as stated, this board has issued a conditional use permit to this gentleman to operate a business. Condition number 4 clearly states that any signage that is posted needs to be approved by the billing division. Obviously, he understands that because the original signage was permitted and it was
Right.
okay. Changes were made to the existing sign to do something different with it, and so therefore, we need to be able to see the billing division has approved that and he has a permit for the signage in place.
Okay, basically, it's my understanding that once a permit is issued for a sign, that permit is enforced completely until the business either changes ownership or changes name. Basically, the sign that was up there was a wooden sign. It was rotted out, and what I had done was took that wooden sign down and replaced it with an aluminum sign, which I feel is kind of beneficial to the basic safety of the pedestrian there. Plus the other sign that was up there, the one that was on wood, was on a pole, and the pole was just swung around against the wall. On this particular sign that was placed up there, is attached flat to the wall completely, so there's no way that the sign can fall. Some other things that had been done, and I can't see having to get a permit every time a change is made on the sign, like maybe to include a phone number or to include food purchases or something like that, as long as the name is still there. And as long as the name is still there, then that permit should be in effect, and we should be in accordance with the specifications.
Okay. So your points are well taken, that some changes were made to the signs, more than likely for the better. I would say that we are not here today to debate the process and procedure of the billing division and of issuing permits for signage. What I would believe that needs to happen is that the conditional use permit holder should consult with the building division, explain the changes, explain that they're for the better. Permits are issued for public safety, for the most part. And so when you talk about how a sign is anchored, or you talk about it moving from a pole or things like that, people need to look at that and make sure that it's still in the spirit of the sign that was there, and that, it's still a safe sign the way it's anchored on the building, or however you have put it up there. So I believe what we're asking for, and I'll open the floor up to the board, but I believe what we're asking for is, to comply with number 4, that the gentleman would simply contact the building division, ask the questions that you've brought up. That's your understanding. Ask the questions, allow them to respond back to him, and then just comply with whatever they tell you.
Okay, well, that's acceptable. I've done quite a few signs around the city of St. Louis, and some of the signs that I have done actually look a lot better than the initial sign that was up there. We've had emphasized the name of the business, and we've also placed pictures on the sign. I really didn't believe that once those pictures is placed on the sign, that it had to be approved by the building inspector. Now, if that's the process by which we need to do, then I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah. But I will be the one that's going down there talking to zoning and the building inspector to go ahead and get this matter straight.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor up to the board. Does anyone have any questions for the gentleman or the conditional use holder? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Okay, so we do have, we will be allowed to go ahead and go through the process of talking to the building inspector without the gentleman being cited again, is that correct?
So after our board's agenda, we'll vote on the hearing. I would think that would be a recommendation that would come up. Obviously, we haven't voted on it, and I can't speak for the board. You're more than welcome to stay around if you'd like to hear what the result is, or you'll be notified by mail.
Okay, because I can go talk to Lyle now.
And that probably would be a good thing to do.
All right.
Okay. Is there anyone else in opposition to the revocation? If so, please come forward at this time and be sworn in. Seeing none, the matter concerning hearing number 8173 is now closed and submitted. The board will move on to hearing number 8185. Hearing number 8185 is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 8.97 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis. The applicant, Laura Bonfante, Smiling Dog LLC, DBA Cousin Paul's Tattoo Shop, is proposing to operate a tattoo parlor at 4530 Hampton Avenue. Due to the nature of this business, the applicant is required to hold a license and permit issued pursuant to Chapter 8.97 in addition to any other requirements under the law. As outlined in Section 8.97.070 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis, the Board of Public Service may approve such application after a hearing if it is satisfied that the applicant is of good moral character and the applicant has given evidence that he or she will be able to operate the premise in compliance with all regulations and laws governing such premise, and the applicant is a resident of the state and his or her neighborhood consent petition is in due form, and the applicant's premise are not within 500 feet of an elementary school. The Board of Public Service has in its possession the following documents which are being introduced into evidence. Item 1, a certified copy of Chapter 8.97 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis. Item 2, the application for tattoo parlors submitted to the Board Secretary with drawing of the proposed premise. Item 3, a copy of the plat and petition of consent. Item 4, a copy of a letter from the Director of Health dated December 15, 2015, to the Board of Public Service finding no evidence of health code violations at the proposed facility. Item 5, a copy of a notarized letter from the owner and manager of the building at 4530 Hampton, providing permission to the applicant to operate the business. Item 6, a memo from the zoning inspector, Myra Turner, dated July 31st, 2015, finding the plat and neighborhood consent petition to be in due form and satisfying the requirements of Chapter 8.97, and finding the business not within 500 feet of a school. Item 7, a letter sent to the applicant dated January 7th, 2016, providing notice of today's hearing. Item 8, a copy of public notices of today's hearing. Item 9, occupancy permit issued to 4530 Hampton Avenue for the use as a tattoo parlor. Item 10, 25 letters of opposition to the business in both emails and letter format. Item 11, 16 letters of support of the business. Item 12, 2 letters of opposition from the alderwoman. Item 13, 1 letter from the St. Louis Hills Neighborhood Association, also in opposition. At this time, the board will swear in and hear from the city representatives present, followed by the applicant and those in support of the applicant's proposed use. The boards will then allow those in opposition of the tattoo parlor to address the board. Thereafter, the applicant and 1 representative of those in opposition to the business will each be allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal testimony. As a reminder, please direct your testimony to the board and not to those in the audience. We ask the audience to remain silent and not coach the witness. The board will close testimony if testimony becomes unproductive and or repetitive. At this time, I would ask the zoning inspector representative to please come forward and be sworn in.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Myra Turner, zoning inspector for the city of St. Louis.
Did you review the completed plat and neighborhood consent petition submitted by the applicant for the proposed tattoo establishment to be located at 4530 Hampton?
Yes, I did.
Did you determine that the neighborhood consent petition complies with the requirements of Chapter 8.97 of the revised code?
Yes, it does.
All right. Does the board have any other questions for zoning at this time? Thank you. At this time, the board asks a representative of the Department of Health to please come forward and be sworn in.
Right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Inspector Jacqueline Trotman.
Okay. Did you perform an inspection of the proposed tattoo parlor at 4530 Hampton Avenue?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you determine that the proposed tattoo parlor complies with all applicable health and safety laws and regulations as promulgated by the Director of Health?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I had a question for the building inspector that occurred to me. Can we call her back up and just ask?
We can.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for health? Seeing none, thank you. Myra, you want to come back up? Director Roth?
I don't want to get ahead of myself on this, but I do see in a letter from the alderwoman that there were complaints that some of the signatures may have been obtained under false pretenses, that with potential signatories being advised, according to this letter, that the business was going to be a boutique that would be by appointment only. Has that come to your attention, or have you looked into the possibility?
That has not come to my attention, and the only thing that I can do is call the numbers and go back out to the different places and verify that the people that are on those petitions have signed them.
I see. Okay. So that would not be part of your ordinary review if somebody had advised you that the information that people living within the distance were told something different than what the actual business was going to be?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. At this time, I'd like the applicant to please come forward and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Laura Bonfante.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you a resident of the state of Missouri?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many tattoo chairs are being applied for?
3.
3. Are you aware that any increase in the number of tattoo chairs must be applied for with this board?
Yes, sir.
How many employees will you have?
None to begin. We work in tattooing basically as independent contractors. They're not employees.
Okay. Do all the tattoo artists have Missouri state licensure, or will they?
Yes, no one will be allowed to work there without a license, and so far only one person is planning to come along with me.
And you have your Missouri state licensure?
Yes, sir.
Do you have all the necessary Missouri state licenses beyond tattoo artist licensing?
What would those be?
Any other licensing that would be necessary from the state? Do you have everything you need?
I'm scheduled for a state health inspection this Friday. That is the last step before I would be allowed to open.
Okay. Will you be able to comply with all the provisions of Chapter 8.97 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis? And they specifically include all the following. Number 1, do you understand that as the operator of the tattoo parlor, you are at all times responsible for the orderly conduct of the tattoo parlor and the acts of agents and servants and employees in the operation of this business?
Absolutely. It's very important to me that my shop is a very tranquil, calm place to be.
Okay. And then the next is pursuant to Chapter 8.97, tattoo parlors may only be open between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 a.m. And what are your proposed hours?
Noon until 9 p.m., except an occasional time. We may run long in our session and go a little later, but not past about 9 or 10 in the evening.
Okay. Tattoo parlors should be kept clean and well lighted so that the rear of the premise is plainly visible from the front of the premise. Will you be able to maintain this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then lastly, no tattoo parlor shall allow or permit any loud noises, boisterous or disorderly conduct in or around the premise or on the grounds of such, and the tattoo parlor shall prevent the loitering of persons on the premise and or around the grounds of such. Will you be able to comply with these regulations?
Absolutely.
Questions from the board?
I do have a question. As a follow-up to Director Roth and concerning the Alderwoman's correspondence that has been sent to us, who, in fact, would have canvassed that neighborhood in the 16th Ward in advance to seek these petitions, with it being called a boutique as contended in the letter?
This would be myself and 2 people who will speak today, Lindsay Buning and Tiffany Ross.
Okay. And they'll be able to comment to that contention?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to add that on the top of the petition, it says tattoo parlor. So any person signing it knows that they're signing in favor of a tattoo parlor. It says directly on that petition. And no one is saying that it was a boutique. It has always been a tattoo studio, although most of my clients will be seen by appointment. We may have walk-ins, but I'm primarily by appointment. I've tattooed 20 years. I have people all over the city, all over the country who will come see me, and they have to book their appointments 2 months in advance.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Thank you.
Are you at all interested in seeing any photographs of the property? The improvements I've made in the exterior of the property? I brought those today. If any of you would like to see those, along with letters from my clients in support of this.
Okay. Noted. Thank you.
You're welcome to submit them as evidence if you want. Yeah, that's
Yes, I
your
would.
call.
At this time, if anyone is in opposition to the applicant or this proposed establishment that wishes to testify, please come forward and be sworn in. Okay. They're correct. So before we get to you, I would like to ask if there's anyone else who is in support of this application, please come forward. Sorry about that. Please come forward, one at a time.
Yes. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Lindsay Buning.
Proceed.
I am a Southampton resident. I live at 5245 Murdoch. I'm a mother. I'm a professional interior designer, and I'm a client of Laura Bonfante's. I'm one of the 45 million Americans that has at least one tattoo. I'm one of the 30% of college graduates that has at least one tattoo. And I'm one of the 40% of Americans aged 26 to 40 that has at least one tattoo. I contribute to the $1.6 million spent every year in America on tattoos. I met Laura when I was being tattooed by her. Over the 30 or so hours that we spent together, we became friends. I've known her to be respectful, conscientious, and a caring person with a high level of professionalism and dedication to seeing the city of St. Louis thrive, as well as raising the standards of her own industry. As a resident of the neighborhood, I welcome her clientele. They are young working people with money to spend in our business district. They are people who will eat dinner at Russell's or Bono's, and they are likely to pick up a St. Louis t-shirt at one-time supply. This kind of investment, both by Laura as an artist and a proprietor, and by her clients throughout the neighborhood when they visit, are exactly the kind of investing that will help continue the revitalization we all want for our neighborhood. In following the processes laid out by the city, she has poured her talent and her savings into renovating the space at 4530 Hampton. What was once a basement storage facility has become a vibrant artistic space meant to attract the kind of upscale professional clientele she wants to work with. I want to take a moment to describe Laura Bonfante's moral character, as I know that that's one of the requirements for her approval. I have found her to be a caring person and a good neighbor. I once caught her leaving my house, driving down the street. She stopped to get out of her car and help a woman who lives down the street from me carry her groceries in because she saw her struggling to carry kitty litter into her house. I want to say that I'm fully in support of this business opening. I also now realize that there are questions about the canvassing and what was said. I'm one of the people that canvassed the neighbors. I knocked on doors. I talked to everyone that answered the door. And I tried to, as best I could, describe Laura and her business. When I was booking appointments with Laura, I needed to book my appointments 2 to 3 months out in order to be seen by her. She has 20 years of experience, and her schedule is typically full. I've met many of her clients from around Missouri and even from different parts of the country who travel here to be tattooed by her. So in describing the business to the neighbors, many of them had objections referring to biker gangs or unruly or disruptive behavior. So we tried to convey to the neighbors as best we could and as honestly as we could the clientele that she's trying to serve, which is someone like me.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of the applicant and the proposed establishment, please come forward.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board?
My name is Tiffany Ross, and I live at 6432 Odell in Clifton Heights neighborhood. I have been a client of Laura's for about 5 years now. I have known her to be very, very dedicated to St. Louis. She grew up as in the city, went to Central VPA High School as a product of our thriving arts community here. After spending some of her professional career in Florida, she has now moved back. Another attestation to her moral character, her mother has severe MS, and Laura took the time and expense to move her from Florida here to Bouvet Manor so that she could be within a 5-minute drive from her home and see her regularly. She cares for her mother very deeply, who is severely disabled. I have found her to be committed to the city of St. Louis and to the growth. In addition to her contribution to the neighborhood, one of my jobs, in addition to helping Lindsay canvass, as well as Laura did a lot of canvassing, I will agree with what Lindsay said. When we were explaining the businesses to the residents, we got a lot of comments about they were concerned that it was going to bring biker gangs. They were concerned that it was going to bring this element of unsavoriness, and we tried to express to them that no, these are people who are willing to wait for the right artist, who will make an appointment 2 to 3 months out, that aren't just running in and getting a tattoo from anyone. These are people who are thoughtful about their art decisions and who want the right person to be doing that artwork for them. And Laura Bonfante is that right person. I have no doubt that she will be successful in her business because her clientele will follow her absolutely anywhere. One of my duties this morning, as far as what we're getting ready to prepare the neighborhood with, is I went down to Missouri Baking Company to get prices on how much a tray of cookies and lemonade would cost, because we're planning on holding a welcome party to all the business owners and all of the people who signed that petition in our favor so that we could even get our zoning hearing. So we're planning on an open house party for those folks. We met with a very favorable response when we talked with the neighbors that we met. There were, of course, few that said no, that wasn't for them, and that's okay. But overwhelmingly, the reaction was very positive and very, very supportive, and we were really pleased with the reactions that we did receive when we spoke with them in person. And then, as Myra testified to, she went back and verified all of those things. I don't believe we misled anyone other than to try to verify to them that this is not roving biker gangs in your neighborhood bringing down property values and those kinds of things, which were some of the negative comments that we heard and combated when we were doing the canvassing.
Did you say you're a resident of the city?
I am. I'm on Odell Street in Clifton Heights.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else in support of this applicant or proposed establishment, please come forward and be sworn in.
Yes.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
My name is Sean Larkin. I live at 7357 Coronado in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm the brother of the applicant, Laura Bonfante. I would just like to testify that she has been a wonderful sister to me, a wonderful daughter to her mother. As they've mentioned, my mother is severely disabled. She has always taken time to care for her. She has been a great influence on me. When I speak of her to my friends, I speak of the supreme intelligence, care, dedication she has for her work. I've spent many time traveling with her at some of the other tattoo parlors that she's worked at across the country and seen how she interacts with her clientele. She's very respectful. She keeps very orderly. Working in a number of establishments, she has accrued a lot of experience in how to manage a tattoo parlor. This is another great asset that she will bring. I will also just say that she has been working towards this goal for many, many years of opening her own tattoo shop. It is her greatest dream, possibly, and I see nothing. She would not let anything occur that would put this dream at risk. That is all.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you for your time. Okay. Anyone else in favor of the applicant or the proposed establishment, please come forward and testify. Seeing none, if there's anyone in opposition to the applicant or the proposed establishment that wishes to testify, please come forward and be sworn in.
Would Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Ron Coleman, 5727 Nottingham Avenue, President of Southampton Neighborhood Association, a volunteer position.
Please proceed.
Okay. We had a board meeting last night and discussed some of the concerns that were brought to us, and I do have a letter I'd like to present. I don't have enough copies for all of you, I apologize. But the three concerns brought to us were that the signature process, we weren't sure that, we had questions of whether it was valid, and sorry, I can't even read my own writing here. There seems to be ambiguity in the ordinance and the verification process. Some signatures cover multiple addresses when the ordinance states residents must sign. There were instances where one person would sign for several different addresses, which is confusing to us, the way the ordinance is written. Second reason, we heard from numerous reasonable residents that are within the 500-foot radius of the proposed business, stating concern that they did not receive a notification card or were not asked to sign a petition. Those residents voiced strong opposition to the business. At least one resident felt misled by the owner requesting the signature, stating that there is a complete disconnect with the way the operation was described during the signature seeking phase, and I suspect that the description was intentionally misleading. And finally, our concern was there was no personal contact with the owner of the business. She did not visit a board meeting to discuss the details, hours of the business, and how the business would be an asset to the neighborhood. So we really didn't have enough information to make a decision. In that case, we unanimously voted to oppose the application. That's all I have.
Any questions from the board?
There's an extra copy.
Thank you. And anyone else in opposition to the applicant or the proposed establishment who wishes to testify, please come forward and be sworn in.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board?
Patrick Theodore, a resident of the Southampton Neighborhood Association. No longer a member of the Southampton Association, a volunteer in the community. I do closely work with St. Louis Hills, Southampton, Lindenwood, and Princeton Heights. After numerous emails last night, a lot of people did not have the chance to come down here and ask me to speak on their behalf, which I'm just voicing. I don't have signatures or anything like that. They just felt that this was not best for the community at this time. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Thank you for your time. Anyone else who wishes to testify in opposition to the proposed establishment, please come forward.
Yeah, I'm on the elected official. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Donna Behringer. I'm Alderwoman Donna Behringer. I represent the 16th Ward, and I'm here because I had a lot of contact from 16th Ward residents. And I want to make sure that I let everyone know today that what I feel has occurred here is a lot of misinformation. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, the people who are contacting me were finding out for the first time that an actual application had been made for a tattoo parlor. And that's a lot of the people. It's because it resides in one neighborhood, but it impacts another neighborhood on the other side. I represent both neighborhoods, but after we were contacted that people were concerned about how some of the signatures occurred, the up and down side of social media is it went viral. And so I have done nothing but take phone calls and emails nonstop for almost 40 hours to the point of I'm tired. And I've tried to explain to people the process, how this process works, that I've always tried to support small businesses and look for value added that reflect the community. And the overall message that came from the residents that contacted me, and there's more than what you have there, is that it did not reflect the family values of the 16th Ward. Now, I need to let everyone know that it's not that I am opposed, or these people are specifically opposed to actually tattoos. It's actually that this is not a form of business that has actually occurred in the 16th Ward. So it is a matter of, is this going to be value added? I want to clarify that we try as best we can to be open-minded, and we were just that in another business that came into the 16th Ward. We did as best we could open our minds to what people call a hookah bar, and we've done nothing but go to court, and we have done nothing being problem properties with this business who has actually done nothing but bring problems onto Hampton. So that may be one of the reasons that the residents are a little leery of saying, you know what, we want to be open-minded, let's let it go. And this particular business that we're dealing with now, were this same situation of trying to bring in a business that's not traditional in the form of what we're used to in our business community, has put a sour taste in their mouth. So I just want to clarify that we are trying the best we can, and the last thing I would ever want is have a business come in and invest any of their money before they actually knew that they had something. I am all for small businesses. I've worked very hard to build up Mackland Avenue, so I understand both sides of this, but I represent the voters of the 16th Ward, and they have made it very clear to me they are very upset by this particular business.
So at any point in time during the planning or the application process, did the applicant reach out to talk with you?
I remember a letter from a smiling dog, but what I think the second part of the confusion came was when the actual name was the cousin. I'm sorry, I keep saying cousin Vinny.
Paul's. Right.
Cousin Paul's. So then they thought someone else had stepped forward and that this was misrepresentation. So the smiling dog was the original, what was presented, and that they were going to, go out and discuss it with the neighborhood. And I think that's where your breakdown came, was that there was not that big swath of reaching out to the neighborhood and making sure everyone fully understood what the business was, what it entailed. And I feel that's why we're here today.
Did the applicant reach out to either of your neighborhood organizations?
I can't speak for those neighborhood organizations.
That you're aware of?
That I'm aware of, correct. I can't speak to
Okay. Any other questions for the Alderwoman from the board? Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else in opposition to the applicant or the proposed establishment that wishes to testify, please come forward. Be sworn in.
I did.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Certainly. My name is Tom Oldenburg. I'm a resident at 6430 Winona Avenue, located in St. Louis Hills. I'm also a member of the business committee on the St. Louis Hills neighborhood organization, and I'm here representing that neighborhood body in opposition of this proposal. It came with a lot of deliberation on our committee as well as our board whether or not to oppose this. For all the reasons, to echo what the Alderwoman said earlier, that's what's part of the lifeblood of St. Louis, is that we have the small entrepreneurial spirit that creates jobs and creates a culture that makes us St. Louisans. Our neighborhood organization was never engaged throughout this process, and to my knowledge, neither was the Hampton Chippewa Business Association. But this is not about tattoos. It's nothing against tattoos. This is not a personal attack on body art practitioners and entrepreneurs who are innovative in the arts. Those are things that I think our organization welcomes and appreciates. But this is about choice. And what I mean by that is there was a professor, and he's still there, at the University of Missouri St. Louis, that wrote a book called The Fragmented City. And his name was Terry Jones, and he talked about that we vote with our feet in this region and in the city of St. Louis proper, that we move where we want to live. Downtown St. Louis is different than downtown Clayton. The lofts on Washington Avenue are different than St. Louis Hills, Southampton, neighborhoods in the 16th Ward. Places like Cherokee Street, places like Forest Park Southeast. What are some other ones here? I have South Broadway, the Grove. These are areas that I think make us a city and we respect, and I think that's a dynamic part of our culture and who we are. I moved to St. Louis Hills 6.5 years ago because St. Louis Magazine made it one of the most quality neighborhoods in the 16th Ward to raise young families. We are boring young families in St. Louis Hills and in the 16th Ward that like quiet, safe streets and to walk to our parks. None of us want to create a NIMBY situation where we, discourage tattoos or entrepreneurism, but we all made a choice to live there because we want to live and work and be around businesses that are representative of the residents in our community. I did a little bit of research. There were some wonderful stats that talked about tattoos and how many people have them. And again, it's a dynamic and innovative part of art, and I think it's much different than the perception of the people on Harleys and bikers. But my point is that there's not a single tattoo parlor west of Morganford and south of 40 in St. Louis. And I think if you polled or surveyed a lot of the neighborhoods and the communities in those areas, those are businesses that people don't necessarily feel that are representative of them as residents and stakeholders in our community. So I'm going to finish real quick with the letter that I drafted and is submitted, I think, before you. And this may go to a zoning question, but I'm just going to read from it because I think it's important based on what I said. I'm not going to read the entire letter, but this, as far as I understand, this is in Commercial District F of the St. Louis Code, Title 26, 40.015, the zoning regulations of the city. So someone can feel free to fact check me on that. And it states what businesses in Zone F shall adhere to for the following purpose. The purpose of District F is to establish and preserve commercial and professional facilities that are useful in close proximity to residential areas. This district is designed to provide convenient shopping and services for persons residing in the immediate neighborhoods in order to satisfy those basic home and personal needs which occur frequently, so long as such uses are compatible and do not detract from the adjacent residential areas. Now, we heard testimony today that people come from all over the world. There's a client base from all over the city, from all over the country. Those aren't, in the way I read the definition of District F, the zoning code, those aren't services that are convenient to those residing in the immediate neighborhoods in order to satisfy basic home and personal needs on a frequent basis. I thank you all for your time today.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else who wishes to testify in opposition to the proposed establishment, please come forward.
Yes.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
My name is John Carrico. I live in the St. Louis Hills neighborhood and have for 17 years. I have two pieces of property there, a rental property and a residential home. My residential property is literally 150 feet from their location. And I've worked for 17 years to cultivate it, to improve it, to get quality tenants and the best rents possible in the street, and which I do. And for me, bringing in a business, a tattoo parlor, is not the type of business that I want to be across from my building. Tattoo parlors have a stigma on them still. I'm not opposed to tattoos. I think tattoos are great. I think people that have them are fine. I don't have anything against it. I don't want one. Maybe I do, maybe sometime. But anyhow, I just don't think that type of business needs to be in the neighborhood. I think it's going to affect our property values. It's going to affect my tenants, because if a tenant comes in there and say, "There's a tattoo parlor over there," really? then people will be walking away from me. I'm concerned about my property values. I don't want my property value to go down. I'm going to retire, and that's my nest egg to live off of, and then to find out, it just starts going downhill. If we let this in, the next thing next door to it's going to be a check cashing store, and we already have enough of that on Kings Highway, and I just don't feel like we need that there. I found out about this last Tuesday from one of my neighbors. I was up shoveling snow early in the morning, and one of my neighbors came up and said, they're opening a tattoo parlor across the street. And I'm like, where? And they pointed to the building. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I immediately got on the phone, started texting with Donna. Are you Charisse? Calling Charisse. I'm probably bugged her to death, but I called her 3 or 4 different times, trying to find out the process, because I've also dealt with liquor license before, too. And so I got the 350-foot circle or 500-foot circle from the business, and with all the names on it, the addresses. I know most of those neighbors over there. I talked to them. I lived there for 15 years in my rental property, walked my dog, and they all know me. So you can see when people come up to me, they were just as emotional about this as I am. I walked around on 6 hours on Saturday with my own flyer with opposition. I got 67 signatures. Of those 67, only the 67, they were all opposed to it. Only 12 of them were rental property owners, were rental tenants. 55 of them are owners of property. They're the people that are impacted. When you start letting tenants of property make decisions about people in the city, I think is totally wrong, because they have no vested interest. They're going to be there renting a property for 2 or 3 years. You might have a few long-term tenants, but for the most part, they're not. The 12 that are most likely, well, I know some of them, they are long-term tenants on my street, especially, then they're 12, 15 years. And they don't want this in the neighborhood. And I'd like to turn my signatures for the opposition. But like I said, I've dealt with this before with other things, and I'm just telling you that my neighbors do not want this in the neighborhood. And it has nothing to do with or against tattoos. It really is the stigma against tattoo parlors and the thing that, mainstream America, there's a lot of our neighbors that probably have tattoos, but they don't want it in their neighborhood. It's just the stigma that the people that are on, mainstream, they patronize our business. It's the other element of the people that get tattoos that rob places, and I think that's what people think about when they think about a tattoo parlor coming into the neighborhood. The only way that I would support this, and I was listening some things from them, like when you asked her if she was the only employee, and she said, yes, I'm the only employee, but all my other people are going to be private employers. It's like, okay, so she doesn't have to give a list, like she can only hire or have 2 contract workers in there for those other 2 chairs she has, or just rotating random. We've discussed her moral character and how good her moral character is, but what about the people that she's just going to let the contractor workers come into her business? I mean, she could have 10 different contractors coming in and out all day long, bringing different people in, and who knows what their clients are like. So to me, if we were going to do something, I would propose that we have a conditional use permit on them. And I would say that they can't stay open past 6 o'clock in the evening. Why? There's nothing on Hampton that is open past 10 o'clock at night. There's nothing open probably after 7 or 8 o'clock on Hampton. Target or Schnucks. But she's 2 blocks down from that. And it lets the neighbors think, well, why do we need something open like this? It just lets people think, oh, well, there's stuff going to be happening. So if she truly is a boutique, as they were saying before, and she has a 2-month backup on her appointments, then all she needs to do is be strictly just taking appointments, because she doesn't need to do walk-ins. And there needs to be, what about signage? Are we putting a neon sign out in front of the place? Because there's no signage in front of the building except on the building that says Hampshire Building. So those are some of the things that I would want to bring up. But I'm just, the parking is another thing. There's 10 spots in the back of the building, and I've been driving by all week long looking at the parking spaces. Every time that I've driven by there, there's 2 available spaces. The rest of the parking spaces are all taken, which I'm assuming are the other clients that are inside that building. In front of the building, coming west, you can park on Devonshire. But on the other side of the street going east, there's no parking. So people don't park on the street in front of the building. So where are these people going to park at, these clients of hers? I just don't think it's the right business for our neighborhood. And with the people that I have, which like I said are mostly owners of the properties, I think it's known. And you start, also what Donna was talking about was social media. When you start getting on social media, I'm not on Facebook, but I found an ally that was on Facebook. She blasted out to her people, and and they're mostly neighborhood people, St. Gabe's parishioners and stuff. And most of the people in St. Louis Hills are opposed to this. They do not want this in the neighborhood, and especially when you start hearing different things, which they talked about again, which was misleading, like it's a boutique, or we're going to have nice artwork on the walls. It's not going to be anything, and then people are thinking, oh, this is the way it is. Okay, I might accept it. Or even like when you have rental property people, because they're not going to be there very long. When you come and say that, oh, sure, I'll sign for you, no problem. What do they have invested? They're not losing anything by bringing in a business that might bring down their property values. So, like I said, I just want it to be known that I'm totally opposed to this, and by the 57 signatures that I've gotten from, like I said, most of those are owners, you will see that they're totally opposed to this also. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Others in opposition, please step forward.
I have not signed it. I have not.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
My name is Christopher Murphy. I'm the president of the St. Louis Hills Neighborhood Association. It is with careful, considerate, and thoughtful representation of our community that we submitted a letter in objection to this business. We wish them the best of luck in their endeavors and a location for them to be successful, but representing the Neighborhood Association in my elected duty, we felt it necessary to put on record our opposition to this. Tom, our VP and representative of the Business Committee for the Neighborhood Association, went through a careful due process to represent and draft a letter that respected our views and opinions of the neighborhood. I ask you to consider that in this hearing, and I ask you to take my testimony in support of all the objection on behalf of our neighborhood and representing the community. That's all I have to say.
Questions from the board? Thank you for your time. Anyone else in opposition, please come forward.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Lisa Cassiola. I am a resident at 4720 Locke Avenue. I live within the, I'm not sure if it's 350 square feet or 500 feet of the residence. I live in the house, the two-family flat that my grandfather built in 1949 or something like that. And my husband and I have since converted the house into our single-family residence. I have I'm a voice teacher. I'm a music therapist. I run a business, a little voice and piano business, teaching students with special needs upstairs. I found out on Saturday that this was going in, and I was concerned because I hadn't heard anything about it. And that just raised some red flags to me. I'm a little nervous, as you can tell, but I have two young kids. We love walking around the neighborhood. We love the park. We go up to Krause Key and have fun. We walk to Target. We walk to Schnucks. We walk to Bono's Pizza. We don't like the pawn shop. We think it's, not great for our neighborhood. We go to the library. We love walking around this neighborhood, and it's such a special neighborhood, and it did go viral on Facebook in the past few days, and I feel like I am representing a large group of young mothers like myself, 30 to 40-year-old women with kids who are in school at St. Gabe's, and they couldn't be here today, and because they're all picking up their kids right now. But I feel like I'm not the only one here in the neighborhood of young girls our age who are in opposition to this, and I object to this going in. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else in opposition who would like to testify? Seeing none, what I will do now is I would like to call the applicant to come back up for a very brief rebuttal period, and then I will ask those in opposition to select one individual for your rebuttal period.
To address some of your concerns, I do understand that some of the residents are concerned that it might affect their property values, and that some people are counting on their properties as their retirement. This shop is to be my retirement. I can't continue to work at a certain level and give a portion of my money to another shop owner. I need to be able to keep more income for myself so that as I get older, I can retire. I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year. As far as my hours go, other businesses on that same strip within walking distance of me, they're open past 9 o'clock, would include Schnucks, the shoe stores, Target, the flower shop. I've done everything in my power and in my knowledge to comply with what the city requires of me. I sent out the postcards as required. As far as the confusion about having multiple addresses with one signature, if one person owns 3 retail places, they are allowed to sign for all 3 retail places. That's why there's one signature for many businesses on there. I wanted to be at this location because of a few reasons. One is this is my demographic. Whether the people here today that oppose me are my clients, obviously they're not. This is my demographic. These are the people who have enough money to come and pay me $120 an hour for my services. They're professional people, and many of them are homeowners that live in the neighborhood. I don't have biker gang, drunk people hanging around my shop. I am a professional. I require a certain level of conduct to do business with me. I don't want to do business with riffraffs. I respect them. I expect respect back. I wrote a letter to Ms. Behringer right after I got my lease and started my application process, inviting her to meet with me for lunch to discuss my plans and to find out what the neighbors thought about it. I received no response from her. I didn't contact any of the neighborhood associations. It's an oversight on my part, but none of them contacted me either. And I issue my cell phone number on my business card. Anyone that wants to talk to me about what I plan to do can feel free to contact me and ask me any questions. I'm an open book. This isn't going to be a problem in the neighborhood. This is going to be an addition to the neighborhood where people are going to come in there and spend money and go get lunch at Bono's and drop in at Target. So far, I've put in about $20,000 in materials to improve the property. And if you guys think I'm crazy for doing that, let me tell you why I have to do it. Because in order to start the application process, I have to provide a lease that shows that I'm in there. So I've retained this property since June. I've been paying on this property since June. If I were to wait for this process to go forward and just now begin any kind of improvements on the property, it would be another 4 or 5 months that I'm going to be paying rent on this property before I could physically be ready to open. As you can see by the condition of the property in those photos, it had to be updated. So I'm in it to win it. I really would like to be given the opportunity to be a part of the neighborhood. I love South City. I grew up in this neighborhood, and I hope that my application will be approved.
Any questions from the board for the applicant? Thank you for your time. I would like to call one representative of the opposition to please come forward for rebuttal. No one?
I think anything we'd have to say would just be read.
Okay. So the record reflect that no one from the opposition will come forward for rebuttal. I'd like to introduce 3 items of evidence into the record. Item A will be pictures of the property submitted by the applicant today at the hearing. Item B will be a letter of opposition from the Southampton Neighborhood Association. And item C will be a petition of opposition submitted by John Como. Thank you. All right. This matter concerning hearing number 8185 is now closed and submitted. The board will continue with its regular agenda. Following the regular agenda, the board will deliberate and vote on both the hearings today. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Here.
Director Rundy.
Here.
Director Hayes.
Here.
Director Ross.
Here.
Director Moore.
Here.
Director Gray.
Here.
And President Bradley.
Here we have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order.
From the President. Addendum number 2 for letting number 8601, installation of new 25 MGD raw water and 15 MGD finished water pumping units at Chain of Rocks Treatment Plant. Contract and bond for letting number 8598, concrete and brick removal, replacement, and complete sidewalk installation project number SP 100. Supplemental agreement number 3 to PSA number 1114, Kings Highway Bridge over Union Pacific Railroad. Supplemental agreement number 8 to PSA number 1124, civil, structural, surveying, geotechnical services, cost estimating and drafting services, Lambert St. Louis International Airport. From the President, Director of Public Utilities and Streets, joint recommendation that permit for WUMBC BJC to make improvements for East-West Connector Bridge, providing access to the Metro Garage, parking garage at Duncan and Taylor, East Parking Garage and Staff Parking Garage for St. Louis Children's Hospital for an elevated enclosed pedestrian walkway, recommends approval subject to certain conditions. From the Director of Public Utilities and Streets, joint recommendation that the following permits be approved subject to certain conditions as follows. Field House Pub and Grill to encroach with wood arbor and steel posts for outside seating at 510 North Teresa. Union Electric Company doing business as Amarin, Missouri, to set and replace poles in alley north of Shoto and east of 17th Street. AT&T, Missouri, access AT&T manhole at 2224 South 9th Street and bore 980 feet along the east side of 9th Street to 2400 South 9th Street to provide service to new apartments at that address. AT&T, Missouri, access AT&T manhole at 4320 Hampton and bore 230 feet along the north side of Sutherland, then 20 feet north in alley of 4320 Hampton, then bore 130 feet south along the alley behind 4320 Hampton. Total right-of-way footage is 380 feet. AT&T, Missouri, starting at existing manhole located at 1831 South Kings Highway and bore 500 feet along the north side of Shaw to 4600 Shaw. AT&T start at existing manhole at 4614 Macklin, bore fiber 15 feet from manhole to new 3 feet by 5 feet by 3 feet handhole, place new 4 feet by 4 feet pad and distribution box 1 feet from new manhole and bore from new handhole to multiple locations, etc. AT&T, Missouri, starting at existing manhole at the rear of 1014 Locust, bore 30 feet in alley to 1014 Locust to provide services for this address. AT&T, Missouri, start 1 feet off curb to alley, place 1 new 4 by 8 by 4 feet handhold in easement, place fiber tails from new handhold to new 4 by 4 feet concrete pad in easement with new distribution box on pad. Bury new fiber to existing AT&T handhold. Charter Communications, existing CATV underground plant in South Alleyway of Washington. 63103 was damaged between the addresses of 3004 through 3038. This will require Charter Communications to do a 2-feet bore and place duct on the very north end of alley for 19 feet. Charter Communications do a 2-inch bore for installing coax cable and conduit for a new store starting in front of 4237 West Evans, going west to the corner of Pendleton, then going north to the east side of Pendleton to 1414 Pendleton behind 4311 Evans. Southwestern Bell Telephone Company doing business as AT&T Missouri, starting at existing manhole located at the side of 650 East Redbud. From this manhole, bore north down the east side of East Redbud, 2 feet off of the curb line for 304 feet, and then turn and bore across East Redbud and enter property at 601 East Redbud. Southwestern Bell Telephone Company doing business as AT&T Missouri, start at existing AT&T manhole located at the front of 3412 Union, bore south down Union, turn and bore east down Lexington, then turn and bore north down the alley ending at existing power pole. The bore will stay 2 feet off the curb line. From the Director of Public Utilities and Public Safety, joint recommendation that the following permits be approved subject to certain conditions. SSM SLUH Inc. to consolidate land at 1310 South Spring, 3672 and 3674 through 76 Rucker and 3655 Vista in City Block 2178, and Botanic Heights Home LLC to re-subdivide land at 4100 through 5154 through 56D Tony in City Block 5310, recommends approval subject to certain conditions. From the Director of Streets, recommendation that the following permits be approved subject to certain conditions. American Pub LLC doing business as TGI Fridays to encroach with Sidewalk Cafe, 18 tables and 72 chairs with liquor at 529 Chestnut, and Bootlegging Barbecue BBQ to encroach with Sidewalk Cafe at 1933 through 35 Washington, 3 tables and 18 chairs with liquor. From the Director of Public Safety, recommendation that 2 special events be approved to hold festival zones at the following location. St. Louis Auto Drifting demonstrations at January 29th through 31st, 2016 at Cole at 9th Street, outside of the American Center, and downtown St. Pat's Day Parade, March 12th, 2016, market from Broadway to Jefferson and a block to the north and south of Market from Broadway to Jefferson, including all parks and plazas within the area that run route. Now we have the conditional uses.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Dylan Mosier, zoning plan examiner for the City of St. Louis, representing the building commissioner. Per board order number 766, transmitted herewith are recommendations for the following conditional use agenda applications. Approval with conditions is recommended for 8 applications: 4102 Wilmington, 1601 South Jefferson, 2733 Cherokee, 2921 North Newstead, 5588 Dr. Martin Luther King, 3730 South Grand, 1400 Grattan, and 5425 Hampton. I request that these recommendations be approved as submitted.
Any questions from the board on the proposed conditional uses? Seeing no questions, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to accept the conditional use
As read. Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye. Approved. I'd like to first consider hearing number 8173, which was 1823 McLaren. Appears that there is a sign-in that has been redone and placed without proper permitting or approval from the city. I'd like to open the floor for discussion.
Like some of these others, I think we should give them 30 to 60 days to get the permit, and I forget whether the process is to hold it in abeyance until, for 60 days and take it up again, hold it open, remind me.
Right, yeah, we just, in the past, I've just given them, tabled it for 30 days and let them get the permit, apply for, or 60 days, whatever the board thinks is best, but to apply with the building division to get the permit. So.
And what it appears is the sign was changed, probably at the recommendation of a signage company, and not aware of the regulations or understanding of them. And, you know, probably a good suggestion would be, as Director Roth suggested, we allow them a cure period and then have Myra go back out and take another look at it and make sure that they've complied with the condition.
I'll follow that up with, given the testimony of the commercial business owner and his explanation of improvements with the sign, maybe some lack of awareness of the new permit with any change, I'd make a motion that we give them 30 days.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion seconded to grant 30 days cure. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye. Approved. I'd like to consider hearing number 8185, which is the proposed tattoo parlor at 4530 Hampton Avenue. You heard testimony from the applicant who went through the city process, did the platinum petition process. There were some individuals here today in support of that proposed business as well. There were also a number of letters that were generated in support. I will make the comment that a number of the letters in support were not residents of the city of St. Louis nor of the proposed neighborhood, but they were in support of the business. On the other side, you had the 16th Ward Alderwoman, come and testify with leaders of the business associations that they were opposed to the proposed business. And there were a number of letters and emails that were provided from residents within the ward, as well as petitions that were submitted today, as well as the Southampton Neighborhood Association also submitted a letter of opposition. So I'd like to open the floor up for discussion. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion then.
I have a question concerning the postcards and the petition that people sign. Is there a way we could determine if they were misled in signing it?
Well, the postcards are provided by the Secretary's office. The applicant addresses those postcards and return them, and then they're verified on a petition circle and they're sent out. The petition as well as the postcard both stated a tattoo parlor, correct?
Yes. In fact, it's a list within the file with all the addresses that the postcards were sent to.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion, and I mean no disrespect to the neighborhoods involved or the opponents, but it is a lawful application for a lawful business that appears to comply with all of the requirements, and it's not easy to comply with all the requirements, including getting the signatures, and that's not been contested in any substantial way. That to put it before the board, I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted to the board.
Okay, I have a motion to accept. Do I have a second? Okay, I do not have a second. We have an invalid motion. Would anybody else like to make a valid motion?
Well, can we go back to discussion at the point?
Go back to discussion.
I think the challenge here is we shouldn't be in this position. We're in a position now to have to decide something that should have been handled well before it got to this position. The idea that the money has been put into upgrading the location, the idea that the money has met, or the individual has met all of the city requirements. There's just apparently a lack of communication along the way to put us in the position that we're currently in right now. If these communications would have taken place with the aldermen, if it would have taken place with the associations, we wouldn't be put in this position that we're currently in right now. And so I don't know, going back to the point that was made earlier, is there a way to find out if some of the things that are being presented to us, for example, the signatures, you say, yes, the information was on there about the tattoos, but we also have letters stating that people were saying that that's not true. So I guess we're being given a lot of information to dissect right now, and I don't know if we've had the time really to dissect all of the information that we've been given. Just my opinion.
So we had zoning come today, and Myra testified that the plat and petition was valid by her check. So what would you like to check on?
Well, we had a letter stating that there were concerns about some of the signatures that were on there. If I'm not mistaken, that was from, let me find it.
One last week.
They were told that it was a boutique and that it would be by appointment only. That's one issue. Another issue obviously would be, and this is going even further into it, is one of the residents said, we've heard about the owner and her credibility. The question becomes the credibility of the contractors that would be also working in there as well. So, you know, kind of all of those things are kind of weighing in on this process, I believe.
So in your mind, you feel like there are some unanswered questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do.
I just want to speak to like the boutique issue. So that seems like from the testimony, it's kind of a he said, she said kind of thing, because we have no way of verifying what was said when they went to the door. So we've heard testimony both ways today. So there isn't any further kind of investigation we could probably do with that regard. Yeah.
So for me, the testimony that I was listening, it was about the district F and services coming in, people using the services and that kind of thing. From a health department perspective, I always ask the question, what assurances? You know, we want businesses in our community. That's a given, and we heard that. You want businesses in your community. The sticking point seems to be perception of clientele, hours of operation. So is it possible that those issues can be addressed in meeting with the community? And it sounds like due process. Going to the alderperson, having that conversation, going to that business association or the business associations within that area to say, here's what I'm thinking about doing, and that. It's unfortunate that an investment was made. Was I correct in hearing that that's a requirement of the process, that you have to make that investment, or you have to show that you are actually residing there?
Do you want to answer that question, Mallory?
As far as, I think for the occupancy permit, which I think is, the occupancy permit is a requirement, the way the code set out for this license. So to get the occupancy permit, I think that you have to show like you're renting it or you're going to buy it, or some sort of document showing that you will be occupying it.
I just go back to the assurances. You know, as a business, as if I'm a business owner, it is my responsibility to assure, to have those questions asked and answered in advance, so that I can assure my constituents, the community, with meeting their obligation and their requirements. Can that be done can that be proven and provided to this body to make a determination? Because that's what I'm hearing from the opposition. There's concern about the clientele, hours of operation. If it's an appointment thing, okay, and then the consultants that you're going to have working in your business, you should be able to speak to that. So can you assure those things? And would that be a conditional use? That if it were to move forward, these are the conditions that we would put or set forth for that operation.
So we don't, I'll read the code section. So we don't have as broad, this board does not have as broad of authority as you would typically with a conditional use permit, because it didn't need, this isn't the zoning board, and it didn't need a conditional use permit. So there is a code section about, actually I gave it to Rich, one sec, I gave you that code section. I'll read what kind of authority the code gives this board with regard to this particular kind of permit. So it says, a majority of the board on its sound discretion may approve such application after a hearing if it is satisfied that the applicant is of good moral character and that the applicant has given evidence that he will be able to operate the premises in compliance with all regulation and laws pertaining to such premises, and the applicant is a resident of the state and his petition of consent is in due form, and the applicant's premises are not within 500 feet of an elementary school as provided. A majority of the board may propose and require changes in the premises in regard to the doorways, windows, lights, entrances, exits, and toilet facilities, and in regard to the number and location of chairs before granting its approval of the application. So we don't really we can limit, what this section is saying is we can limit certain things, but it kind of limits it to like specific things like exits and the chairs and more structural things. So we don't really have as a broad of authority with this kind of license and permit.
Okay. And so the basic conversation I would just bring forward is, you know, when you just look at the sheer numbers of proposed for and opposition to, and you look at the sheer numbers of proposed for are not residents of the city or the neighborhood for the most part, and you look at the sheer opposition to, which is neighborhood residents and residents of the city, my gut feeling would be is that this business is not going to survive in this neighborhood. And more tragedy that's added on top of an initial investment, for whatever case that may be, is that we allow something to happen, or we rule for something to happen, and then it becomes a problem in the community and in the neighborhood. And then we find ourselves back here in 6 months from now doing a revocation and thousands of more dollars spent, and people just unhappy with everything as went on. As the Alderwoman said, open-minded new business they had in the ward on Hampton Avenue, they gave an opportunity to, and now it's a nuisance property, and more than likely it'll wind up before this board to make the same decision. And so, you know, I think the tough decision is the longer, you know, you don't make a decision, it's going to create more of a problem. You know, I think everybody's right that there's a lack of communication. It would appear to me that, you know, if you're going to operate a business in a neighborhood, you would make absolutely sure that you spoke to the alderman and you found out whether or not there was going to be any opposition to this. I know the applicant mentioned that, you know, she had written a letter to the alderperson and the alderperson didn't respond, you know. Yes. I think before I would spend $20,000, I would have probably did a little more due diligence and drop one letter and say it's probably going to be good. In the same token, you know, the neighborhood groups that are there, you know, the business association that's there, which regulates the businesses in the ward, have all made the point to us that, you know, their recommendation is not to approve this. So, you know, please keep that in your mind while you're formulating your decision.
At some point, we're going to have to vote. What should be the nature of the motion? Should it be moved to approve the permit, and then either it passes or fails, depending on the vote, or?
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor by Director Roth, which was a move to approve, and we didn't receive a second, so it's an invalid motion. So unless someone wants to revisit that, the other motion would be is someone moves to deny the permit, and there's a second, and then we vote. But there has to be a motion and a second before we can vote on the matter.
If you move a motion to deny it and it fails, then we have no decision. And if we have a motion to approve it and it fails, then the permit is dead. You have a decision either way.
Right.
So,
is that correct?
Right. So, Ed, would you make that motion again?
I would move to approve the application.
And I will second.
Okay.
So now that puts...
Any further discussion? Okay.
Isn't that a motion? Aren't we taking a vote?
Yeah, no, so he made a motion
Somebody's going to have to make a different motion.
I'm sorry.
So the clarification of the motion is we have a motion on the table to approve from Director Roth. We have a second on the table from Director Gray. We will take a vote. It needs a majority to win. If it gets a majority, it passes. If it fails, then we have a non-decision and we will need a different motion. Okay? Everybody clear on that? All right, we're voting on a motion to approve in a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Nay.
Director Rundy.
Nay.
Director Hayes.
Nay.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Nay.
Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
No. Motion fails. Okay, so now we have a motion that failed. I will ask for another motion.
I move to disapprove the permit.
Okay, I have a
Second.
motion for denial. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion seconded for denial. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
No.
Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Gray.
No.
And President Bradley.
Aye, denied. Okay, I'd like to turn your attention to the minutes for the January 19th, 2016 minutes, our last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy. Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Abstain.
Director Moore.
Aye.
And Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye, the minutes are approved.
Motion for the special call meeting.
For the minutes? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to call your attention to our special call meeting minutes from the 22nd. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy.
Abstain.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye, approved. Turn your attention to today's agenda. Are there any questions on the agenda?
Yes.
Comments? Yes, sir.
Yes, on page 2, under the report of the Directors of Public Utilities and Public Safety, the second item, I think that the address should be Botanical Heights Homes to re-subdivide land at 4100 through 415456, not 51,
Okay.
5456.
Okay, noted. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to approve the agenda with the correction on page 2.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie.
Aye.
Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Oh, excuse me. Aye.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye, the agenda is approved. Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.